Now, set the volume control on your projector. The sound level should be adjusted until my voice can be clearly understood in all sections of the room. You are now ready to participate in Pan American Travel Adventure.
Ah, the river. And Africa. Away. Yellowstone National Park. Well, all in all, it's rather an interesting world I live in, don't you think? I call it a world of curious contrast. It's, well, you see, actually, it's not the world at all I'm talking about. It's my country, this, New Zealand. New Zealand, a country I feel has everything in the world. Of course, every film has to have a cast of characters, and so does every country. They work the land, drive the sheep, manage the businesses, run the homes, go to school, or just grow up. They cast the character of the country. This is Hoani Wiata. He's New Zealand, every wee inch of him. So is his father, George. The Maori and the Pakeha, that's us. Together, we are New Zealand. But the Maori has a Polynesian culture that never leaves him, that reaches way back to the time he discovered New Zealand. Farmers, judges, lumbermen, businessmen, members of parliament, doctors, they remember always their Maori heritage. The haka, dance of defiance. This Maori symbol of defiance actually made New Zealand. There's a legend that tells us of the ancient god Maui, who was out fishing one day with his two brothers. He hooked New Zealand, pulled it out of the warm Pacific, and cautioned his brothers not to touch. But even gods aren't perfect, so the brothers fought over it. And it broke and fell back into the sea. So this act of defiance is what caused New Zealand to resemble a broken fish. Up on the tail there, we built our largest and oldest city, Auckland. Auckland, like Corinth, stands astride two seas. At least, that's what my father used to tell me as we climbed the rim of the crater to the top of Mount Eden. So as a boy, I used to try to focus one eye on the mighty Pacific and the second eye on the Tasman Sea. It was my own small defiance, and it never worked. I've always found it much better to focus both eyes and just look at Auckland. You know, it's always puzzled others why people who are surrounded by thousands of natural lakes and beautiful beaches should plunk down an enormous swimming pool at the edge of a big city. But there you are, and it is fun for a change. Ah, change. Auckland Town Hall there used to seem giant to me. Now it has to look up to more modern buildings. That's the way of time. Touch the earth on New Zealand, says a Maori song, and a flower blooms. Gardens do grow easily all year through. Some houses seem built of flowers. Everywhere you look nowadays, something new seems to be added alongside our heritage. We wear our heritage where everyone can see it, even in our enthusiasm for the fast-paced sporting events of Auckland. Well, obviously, pace and enjoyment are relative, aren't they? Blood stops bubbling violently at a certain point of life, and you enjoy gentle sport in a gentle climate. Of course, there's horse racing, rugby. Whatever you want is just a walk or bus ride away. Now, that's not boiling blood, you know. That's called North Island defiance. What made it possible to build our capital city at the tops of steep hills? Wellington. Always a wonderful view, isn't it? See down there? Port Nicholson Harbor. One of the most beautiful and best deep-water harbors of the world. You know, to me, Wellington has a, well, bold spirit. Because from this city, the center of our government, we've moved forward in big, bold steps. Always seemed a young city to me, with a love of movement. So many new buildings going up, you sometimes forget that just around the corner is the South Seas. As this boat ride in the south half of the Broken Fish will testify. I vacation here often in Queenstown, in South Island. A lot of wonderful New Zealand history down there. Our pioneers roamed these plains, planting American-like western towns wherever they stopped. And I think it's proper that even though we're a very young country, we have a couple of ghost towns in our background. Oh, what stories my grandfather told about our gold rush of the 1880s. Always possible to pick up a few shillings by dipping into history, as it were. He's one of many weekend gold prospectors whose hobby often pays off. But actually, this particular man finds most of his gold somewhere else. This is gold. New Zealand gold, the rich soil, congenial climate, the farms. This is typical New Zealand farming. I mean it, no exaggeration. This is the way we farm here, completely mechanized, every inch, on the ground and in the air. We do quite a bit of our farming from the air, combination of science and aerial acrobatics. This sort of farming was pioneered here in New Zealand. Scientifically prepared fertilizer is used to do what we call aerial top dressing. Thousands of acres of once useless land have been made highly productive through this kind of fertilizing. Only takes 58 seconds to land, load, take off again. Repeat this many times a day. Men like this came home from war with a love of flying and an idea about what could be done to farm the hilly country they love. Bill and his fellow pilots have seeded and fertilized mountain areas you couldn't reach with a plow. Yes, sir, here in New Zealand, we've given birth to a whole new way of farming. We drop fence posts this way, seed the hills by air, dust the crops. An interesting point is that this method of fields and fertilizer, most farmers use aircraft even on level land. Hills, of course, pretty hard to dairy farm, so they're used for another important kind of farming. Somehow, sheep don't mind climbing hills, especially when the ground is loaded with rich, well-seasoned grasses. This is highly specialized New Zealand farming. Like traffic policemen, those sheepdogs. Always a few strays in every flock, I suppose. They're a lot like people. Hunger, even in sheep, produces restlessness, as well as skinny sheep. So they have to be driven to fresh, green pastures. Sometimes think those drovers are part sheep themselves, or at least as much a part of the New Zealand landscape as sheep. Always find them driving their flocks to new pastures, to new sheep stations, to one of the many government laboratories for testing. New Zealand sheep farming is highly scientific. The breeding is controlled through the use of artificial insemination. The pastures are scientifically planned and managed. Sheep food is filled with the latest vitamins. The newest wonder drugs are used to maintain an unusual high degree of good health and growth. Well, actually, without the careful, calm, scientific genius that enables man to overcome the problems of nature, our sheep couldn't possibly be the finest in the world. Of course, it's quite obvious this merino ram is not typical New Zealand stock, which probably accounts for his un-New Zealand-like attitude. Doesn't seem much need to bump heads here. The climate's not for it, and there's just too much to do. And so much space in which to do it. The sky's the limit. Sort of aerial top dressing for the eyes, isn't it? Sometimes I've wanted to reach out and grab off the tips Other times, I've wanted to shove them out of my way. I feel that way always flying over the Southern Alps because I know what the hunting, fishing, and skiing's like down there. In some places, they have small planes that land you in private pastures of snow, so you can ski away the morning. Then they pick you up and carry you back to the lodge. And hunting, well, planes perfect to carry you to the high country for the kind of hunting you usually only read about in books. This is rough, rugged country. Deer are plentiful, too plentiful. Fact is, they're a national pest. So you'd be performing a sort of government service if you would come and bag a few. Seasons wide open all year round. A tropical jungle without snakes, with no dangerous wild animals. Quite a feeling, you know, to walk through a thick jungle with nothing to worry about, except the number of deer you want to bag for dinner. Ah, there's a New Zealand ritual that starts the taste buds hopping. Strong, delicious billy tea, along with fresh venison. Of course, you can walk, not fly, to the nearest fishing stream. Nearest lake is probably only a half to an hour's ride from wherever you are. New Zealand lakes and streams, the likes of which you've never before seen. Just look at old Frost there. He's fished New Zealand. He knows what to expect. Every fish, a fish you've dreamed about. Even the one that got away, you have to throw away because the legal minimum in New Zealand is 14 inches. $12 a day like this. That's a dream to satisfy any fisherman. Rainbow trout average about 4 pounds, run up to 12 pounds or more. The hands of an expert fisherman have rhythm, balance, like a symphonic conductor. Alan Pye is one of the greatest trout fishermen in the world. I suppose, like most country boys of the world, Hoane is growing up with a fishing pole in his hand. But he's got it over most boys, I think, because there's one thing he can do they can't. Unless, of course, they live in Wakariwa too. I don't think there's another place in the world where cold and hot streams run side by side. No chemical in the water either to spoil the taste. In seconds, fresh and sweet and delicious. The Maoris really cook this way, even today. You know, I must confess that so many times I've watched Pohutu Geyser play like this, and each time it does something new to me. I mean, I come and I stand here in the center of this fantastic geyser valley in Wairaki, and I know how it must have been when the world began. Like most of the world, we don't just look at our natural wonders. After all, you can find a lot of strength, a lot of power in beauty, a lot of beauty in power, too. We're even pulling electric power out of old Mother Earth now, tapping nature's powerhouse. These are the Wairaki bores. Really something unique. Boring 3,000 feet through hot earth to harness live geothermal steam. Pipe it. Jets of pure superheated natural dry steam that'll run generators to make more electricity for every nook and cranny of New Zealand. Man-made geysers. Well, there's a lot of natural beauty man can't improve, like our own New Zealand fern. And old kiwi there, funny flightless, wingless bird. Can't leave our national symbol out of the cast of this film. And the weka, he's New Zealand too. Well, you've seen our pocket world here. I've always been tremendously grateful to the god Maui for packing most of the scattered beauties of the earth into this 1,000 miles of country. Rotorua, Te Arawa, Dunedin, Timaru, Ohinimutu, Christchurch. And you're only 1 or 2 days away from everything in it. If you like every imaginable sport, and if you like being made to feel welcome in our miniature world, well, that's New Zealand. Believe me, there is something new under the sun. Down under.
I'm bound for New Zealand, my homeland, New Zealand, the place I long for. From there I roam. That's my New Zealand. I'm heading for New Zealand, the loveliest land on earth. I call my home.